The wet embrace. A humble mother's kindness to a crying boy changes a millionaire's life. The chilling rain lashed down, blurring the city lights, as a little boy sobbed inconsolably. Passers-by hurried past, umbrellas shielding them from the downpour and from the sight of human despair. But a humble young mother, already cradling her own infant, didn't hesitate. She knelt, sheltering the unknown child with her coat, whispering words of comfort. Unbeknownst to her, the boy's millionaire father was watching from his luxury car, every fiber of his being shattered by the raw kindness he witnessed. What happens when a single act of compassion exposes a lifetime of emotional neglect, forcing a powerful man to confront his deepest regrets and redefine his entire existence? This is a story about a chance encounter that transforms a lonely family into a beacon of love. A moment of unseen kindness. "Don't cry, my love. It's over now," Elena Flores whispered, caressing the wet face of the unknown child. "What's your name?" "Ma." "Max," the 12-year-old sobbed, trembling under the torrential rain that lashed the streets of downtown New York City. Elena adjusted her baby Leo against her chest with one hand, and with the other, she took off her soaked jacket to cover the boy's shoulders. Her own lips were blue from the cold, but she didn't hesitate for a second. "Where are your parents, Max?" she asked sweetly, shielding him with her body as she sought refuge under a store awning. My dad is always working," the boy murmured. "I fought with John, the driver, and I got out of the car. I don't know where I am." A few meters away, from the tinted window of a black BMW, Mr. Richard Thorne watched the scene, his heart in his throat. He had spent the last 30 minutes scouring the streets after the desperate call from the school. His son had run away again, but what he saw left him speechless. A young woman, clearly of modest means by her simple worn clothes, comforted Max as if he were her own son. She carried a baby who couldn't have been more than 6 months old, and yet she had given her only protection against the rain to an unknown child. "Look, I have some leftover empanadas from today," Elena said, pulling a paper bag from her backpack. "They're a little cold, but they'll hit the spot. Are you hungry?" Max nodded and accepted the empanada with trembling hands. It had been years since anyone had cared for him like that, with such simple, genuine tenderness. "It's delicious," he murmured between bites. "My mom never cooked for me." The comment pierced Elena's heart like an arrow. This child, with his expensive St. Augustine school uniform and his brand-name shoes, seemed to have all the money in the world, but he lacked the most important thing. "All moms know how to cook from the heart," she told him, wiping away his tears with her sleeve. "Sometimes they just need a little help to remember." Richard slowly got out of the car, feeling every step as if he were walking on broken glass. Guilt choked him. When was the last time he had comforted his son like that? When was the last time he had truly seen him? "Max," he called, his voice hoarse. The boy lifted his head and, seeing his father, stiffened. Elena felt the change immediately and looked towards where the voice came from. Her eyes met Richard Thorne's, and the world stopped for a second. It was him, the man from the magazines, the youngest and most successful CEO in the country, the millionaire widower who appeared in all the business news. "Oh my God," Elena whispered, taking a step back. "You're the father of Max," Richard completed, approaching slowly. "And you are the kindest person I have ever met." Elena felt her cheeks burn with shame. He would surely think she was one of those women who took advantage of rich children. She quickly gave the jacket back to Max and tried to back away. No, I'm not. I was just helping him because he was crying and—" "Wait," Richard said, extending a hand. "Please, don't leave." But Elena was already backing away, clutching Leo tighter to her chest. The raindrops mixed with the tears that began to well in her eyes. "Max, let's go," Richard murmured, but his son didn't move. "I don't want to go," the boy said, clinging to the jacket he still wore. "She took care of me when I was alone. No one takes care of me like her." Max's words hit Richard like a punch to the stomach. His own son preferred a stranger over him. "Ma'am," Richard said, his voice softer. "My name is Richard Thorne, and I owe you an apology." "An apology?" "For being the kind of father who makes his son prefer the company of strangers over mine." The silence that followed was broken only by the sound of rain against the pavement. Elena looked at this powerful man, vulnerable for the first time, and then at Max, who was still clinging to the jacket as if it were a lifeline. "Children just need to be seen," she finally said. "To be truly listened to." Richard nodded, swallowing hard. He knew she was right. He knew he had failed. "How can I thank you for what you did for my son?" Elena shook her head, adjusting Leo's blanket. "You don't have to thank me for anything. Anyone would have done the same." "No," Richard said, looking directly into her eyes. "Not just anyone. You gave your jacket to an unknown child while carrying your own baby in the rain. That's not common. That's extraordinary." For the first time, Elena didn't know what to say. This man looked at her as if she were something valuable, something special. No one had ever looked at her like that. "I have to go," she finally murmured. "Leo will get sick in this cold." "At least let me take you home," Richard offered. "It's the least I can do." Elena looked at him with distrust. Rich men always wanted something in return. "No, thank you. We can take the bus." "Please," Max insisted, taking her hand. "My daddy isn't bad. He's just always sad." The innocence of those words completely disarmed Elena. She looked at Richard and saw something she didn't expect. Genuine pain. Real remorse. "All right," she whispered, but only to the subway station. As they walked towards the car, none of the three knew that this encounter in the rain would change their lives forever. Elena didn't know she had just met the man who would become the love of her life. Richard didn't know he had just found the woman who would teach him to be a father and to love again. And Max didn't know he had just found the mother he had always needed. The rain continued to fall, but for the first time in a long time, none of them felt completely alone. What is the most powerful aspect of Elena's spontaneous act of kindness towards Max? How does Max's preference for Elena over his own father affect Richard? And what does this reveal about his past? Share your insights in the comments. A new routine. A growing connection. Richard hadn't been able to sleep in 3 weeks. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the image of Elena in the rain, protecting his son with a tenderness he himself had forgotten how to show. "Dad, when are we going to see the nice lady again?" Max asked for the umpteenth time during breakfast, pushing his cereal around without eating it. "Her name is Elena," Richard corrected, surprised at how clearly he remembered her name. "Are you going to call her?" Richard put his coffee down on the table. He had discreetly had Elena Flores investigated. 23 years old, single mother. Street vendor of empanadas. She lived in a tiny apartment in Harlem with her 6-month-old son, Leo. No known family. She worked tirelessly just to survive. "It's complicated, son." "Why?" Max looked at him with those eyes that reminded him so much of Sophia. "She listened to me when I cried. You never listen to me when I cry." The truth hurt more than any physical blow. Richard knew his son was right. Since Sophia's death 5 years ago, he had retreated into work, building a business empire, but destroying his relationship with the only thing that truly mattered. "How about we offer her a job?" he finally said. "She could take care of you in the afternoons when I'm at the office." Max's eyes lit up like Christmas lights. "Really? Elena would come live with us?" "No, not live. Just work a few hours." But as he said the words, Richard felt a strange pang in his chest. The idea of seeing Elena every day didn't just seem practical. It seemed necessary. In Harlem, Elena walked through the health center corridors with Leo in her arms. The baby had developed a cough that wasn't getting better, and the medicine he needed cost more than she earned in a week. "Ms. Flores," the doctor, an older woman with a kind face, said, "Leo urgently needs these antibiotics. His bronchitis could get complicated if we don't treat it now." Elena looked at the prescription, her heart sinking. $200. She could get it by selling empanadas for 2 weeks, but by then it would be too late. "Isn't there anything cheaper?" she asked in a trembling voice. "I'm afraid not. This is the treatment he needs." Elena left the office with tears in her eyes. Leo coughed weakly in her arms, each sound a stab to her mother's heart. "What am I going to do, my love?" she whispered to him. "Mommy's going to get that money, I promise you." On the bus ride back, her phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello, Ms. Elena Flores." "This is Martha Vance, assistant to Mr. Richard Thorne. He would like to speak with you about a job proposal." Elena almost dropped the phone. "Richard Thorne, Max's dad? A job?" she murmured. "Yes, ma'am. Could you come tomorrow at 10 in the morning to the offices of Thorne Holdings? It's in Midtown." Elena looked at Leo, who was coughing weakly in her arms. She had no choice. "Yes, I'll be there." The offices of Thorne Holdings occupied 3 floors of a glass building that seemed to touch the clouds. Elena felt tiny as she entered, in her only decent dress and worn shoes. "Ms. Flores," Martha, an elegant middle-aged woman, greeted her. "Mr. Thorne is waiting for you." Richard stood when she entered his office. He looked different in his perfectly tailored suit, and his hair combed back, but his eyes still held that sadness she had noticed in the rain. "Elena, thank you for coming. How is Leo?" The question surprised her. She didn't expect him to remember her son's name. He's sick," she admitted, unable to hide the worry in her voice. "What's wrong with him?" "Bronchitis. He needs medicine that I can't afford right now." Richard felt a pang of pain seeing the vulnerability in her eyes. This woman had helped his son without asking for anything in return, and now she struggled alone to save her own. "Elena, I want to offer you a job. Max has been asking for you since that day. I need someone to take care of him in the afternoons, someone I can trust." "Why me?" she asked. "You can hire any professional nanny." "Because my son smiled more in those 5 minutes with you than in the last 5 years with me." Silence filled the office. Elena looked out the window at the city stretching out below, a world completely different from her own. "How much would you pay?" she finally asked. $1,500 a week part-time, and Leo's medical insurance would be covered by the company. It was 3 times what she earned selling empanadas. It was the salvation she needed, but her pride rebelled. "That's too much money for taking care of a child for a few hours." "It's not just taking care of Max," Richard said, approaching. "It's giving him back his smile. It's teaching him that he can trust someone. That's priceless." Elena looked him in the eyes and saw something that scared her. Complete sincerity. This powerful man needed her as much as she needed the job. "What if it doesn't work? What if Max gets tired of me?" "That won't happen," Richard said with certainty. "That boy has already adopted you as his family. I just ask you not to disappoint him." "I would never harm a child," Elena said, a little offended. "I know. That's why you're here." Elena thought of Leo coughing in the arms of the neighbor who cared for him. She thought of the unpaid bills, of the sleepless nights worrying about the future. "I accept," she whispered, "but on one condition. Tell me. I want to continue selling my empanadas on weekends. It's my business. It's what I know how to do." Richard smiled for the first time in weeks. This woman had more pride and dignity than many of the executives he knew. "Of course, when can you start?" Tomorrow." if you want. But first, I need to take Leo to the doctor. Martha will take care of that today, Richard said, heading towards the door. And Elena. She stopped and looked at him. Thank you for giving my son and me a chance. As she went down into the glass elevator, Elena didn't know if she had made the best decision of her life or the most dangerous one. What she did know was that, for the first time in a long time, she had hope that things could get better. The next day, when she set foot in the Hamptons mansion, she knew she had entered a world she had never imagined. But she also knew, seeing Max's smile running towards her, that she was exactly where she needed to be. What is the significance of Richard's unexpected offer to cover Leo's medical expenses? How does Elena's refusal to give up her empanada business reveal her core values and strength? Share your insights in the comments. A family blooms. Elena! Max shouted, running through the mansion's garden towards the main entrance. Look what I did at school! It was her second week working at the Thorne home, and Elena still felt as if she were in a dream. The house was enormous, with perfect gardens and an incredible view of the city. But what surprised her most was how Max had blossomed since her arrival. Let's see, my love, she said, holding Leo with one arm while taking the drawing with the other. How beautiful! Is this our family? On the paper were 4 figures: a tall man, a woman with long hair, a big boy, and a small baby, all holding hands. Yes, it's us, Max said, with a huge smile. You, me, Leo, and Dad. Elena felt a lump in her throat. In just 2 weeks, this child had included her in his concept of family. She didn't know whether to feel happy or worried. Max, I just work here. Your family is you and your dad. But Dad's never around, the boy said, his smile fading a little. And you are. You help me with homework, you make me snacks, you play with me. That's what moms do, right? Before Elena could answer, she heard the sound of a car at the entrance. Richard had arrived, and as was customary lately, much earlier than usual. Dad? Max ran towards the door. You're early again! I wanted to have dinner with you, Richard told his son, challenging him. And with Elena and Leo, of course. Elena felt a strange warmth in her chest when he naturally included her in his plans. During these 2 weeks, Richard had begun to arrive earlier and earlier from work, always with some excuse. That he had less work, that he wanted to check on Max's progress at school, that he needed to sign some papers at home. But Elena saw the truth in his eyes. Richard was trying to make up for lost time with his son, and somehow she had become part of that process. Today I made chicken and sausage jambalaya, Elena said. I hope you like home-cooked food. I love it, Richard replied. And by the way he said it, she knew it was true. During dinner, Elena observed how father and son interacted. Richard made a genuine effort to listen to Max, asking him about his day, his friends, his favorite subjects. And Max, who at first responded in monosyllables, now spoke animatedly. Dad, did you know Elena knows how to do origami? She taught me how to make a crane today. Really? Richard looked at Elena with genuine interest. Where did you learn? At school, many years ago, she replied, feeling a little shy under his gaze. Our art teacher taught us. She said it was good for concentration. Could you teach me? Richard asked. Surprising her. You want to learn origami? I want to learn everything that makes my son happy. The sincerity in his voice made something stir in Elena's heart. This powerful man was willing to do origami if it meant connecting with Max. After dinner, the 4 of them sat in the living room. Leo slept in Elena's arms, while she taught Richard and Max how to fold paper. She saw Richard's large, strong hands, accustomed to signing million-dollar contracts, delicately struggling with a paper figure. "No, Dad, not like that," Max laughed. "Look, you have to fold inwards, not outwards." "Your son is a better teacher than I am," Elena told Richard, and when their eyes met, she felt an electricity that scared her. "Max is better at many things than I thought," Richard responded. "I just needed someone to help me see it." The following weeks established a routine that felt dangerously normal. Richard arrived earlier every day, always finding excuses to stay a little longer. They had dinner together, helped Max with homework, watched movies as a family. One night, while cleaning the kitchen after dinner, Elena felt a presence behind her. "Let me help you," Richard said, taking the dish towel to dry the dishes. "You don't have to, Mr. Thorne. It's my job." "Richard," he corrected her gently, "and it's not your job. We eat together. We clean together." They worked in silence for a few minutes, but Elena was very aware of his closeness, of the occasional brush of their hands when he took the dishes she washed. "Elena," he finally said, "I want you to know that Max has changed completely since you arrived. His grades improved. He no longer fights at school. He smiles all the time." "He's a wonderful boy," she replied. "He just needed someone to believe in him, like you believed in him that night in the rain." They stood looking at each other for too long. Elena was the first to look away. "I should go. Leo needs to sleep in his bed." "Elena?" Richard stopped her as she went to the living room for the baby. "Can I ask you something personal?" She nodded, nervous. "Why don't you have a partner? A woman like you, so caring, so dedicated." Elena felt her cheeks burn. "Men in my neighborhood don't want a woman with another man's child. And I don't have time to look for love. I have to focus on Leo." "Leo's dad is an idiot," Richard said with more vehemence than he intended. "He left when he found out I was pregnant," Elena admitted. "He said he hadn't signed up to be a dad." The anger Richard felt surprised him. How could someone abandon a woman like Elena? How could someone abandon their own child? "His loss," he murmured. That night, after Elena left, Richard stayed awake thinking about the conversation. He could no longer deny what he felt for her. It wasn't just gratitude for how she cared for Max. It was something deeper, more dangerous. But he also knew that the differences between them were enormous. He was one of the wealthiest men in the country. She sold empanadas to survive. His world would judge her. It would hurt her. Did he have the right to expose her to that? The next day, his doubts intensified when he received a call from Ms. Julia Davis, his late wife's mother. "Richard, we need to talk. I've heard very disturbing rumors about an employee you have at home." "What kind of rumors, Julia?" "That she spends too much time there. That Max is very attached to her." "Richard, that boy is all that's left of our Sophia. You can't let an opportunist take advantage of his vulnerability." "Elena is not an opportunist," Richard said, feeling the need to defend her. "Elena? You already call her by her first name. Richard, please. You know what these women are looking for. You can't be so naive. This conversation is over, Julia. If you don't end this situation, we'll have to take legal action to protect our grandson." The threat hung in the air after Julia hung up. Richard knew it wasn't an empty threat. The Davises had power and influence, and they wouldn't hesitate to use it. That afternoon, when he arrived home and saw Elena helping Max with his homework while Leo crawled on the rug, he felt a pang of pain in his chest. How could he choose between protecting this woman who had brought light into his life and protecting his relationship with his son? But as he watched the domestic scene, so perfect and natural, he knew he could no longer pretend that what he felt was just gratitude. He was in love with Elena Flores, and that terrified him more than any risky business deal he had ever made. What is the significance of Max's increasing animation and his deep affection for Elena, contrasting with his previous withdrawn state? How do Julia Davis's threats and suspicions force Richard to confront his feelings for Elena and the societal barriers they face? Share your insights in the comments. A truth revealed, a love challenged. Are you sure it's okay here? Elena asked, looking around the elegant restaurant in Midtown. Richard had insisted on taking her out to dinner at a special place away from the house, away from Max. There was something in his gaze that had made her nervous for days, an intensity she hadn't seen before. It's perfect, he responded, helping her sit down. I wanted a place where we could talk without interruptions. Talk about what? She asked, nervously playing with her napkin. Did I do something wrong? Did Max misbehave at school? No, it's none of that. Richard took her hand across the table. It's about us. Elena's heart raced. Over the past few weeks, she had felt something changing between them. The glances that lasted too long, the conversations that stretched into the night, the way he naturally included her in all family plans. Richard, let me speak first, he interrupted softly. Elena, when you came into our lives, you brought something I thought I had lost forever. You brought joy. You brought warmth. You brought love. Elena felt her breath catch. Was he saying what she thought he was saying? Not only did you bring Max's smile back, Richard continued, you brought mine back too. And I realized that what I feel for you goes far beyond gratitude. Richard, you shouldn't. I love you, Elena, he said, squeezing her hand. I know it's complicated. I know we're from different worlds, but I love you. And I believe, I hope, that you feel something for me, Tantuha. Tears began to roll down Elena's cheeks. She had dreamed of this moment, but she had also feared it. I love you too, she whispered. But I'm scared, Richard. I'm scared this will be temporary, that you'll get tired of me, that your world will never accept me. My world doesn't matter, he said, getting up and kneeling beside her chair. Only we matter. You, me, Max, Leo. We are a family, Elena. We have been since day one. Elena was about to respond when a movement at the restaurant entrance caught her attention. An elegant woman, with brown hair and familiar eyes, walked towards their table with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Richard followed her gaze and turned pale as a ghost. Sophia, he murmured, but you're dead? Apparently not, she completed with a cold smile. Though I understand your confusion. Elena stood up too, completely lost. Who was this woman? Why did Richard seem to have seen a ghost? Excuse me, Elena said. I think there's a misunderstanding. There's no misunderstanding, Sophia said, extending her hand. I'm Sophia Davis Thorne, Richard's wife, and you must be the nanny I've heard so much about. Elena's world collapsed. Wife? Richard was married? Sophia, what are you doing here? Richard asked, his voice barely a whisper. You're supposed to be dead? Yes, that was the idea, she said, taking a seat uninvited. But plans change, don't they? Elena felt her legs tremble. Without a word, she grabbed her purse and ran out of the restaurant. She needed air. She needed to understand what was happening. Richard followed her, leaving Sophia alone at the table. Elena, wait! He shouted, catching up to her on the street. I can explain everything. Explain what? She screamed, tears streaming down her face. That you're married? That you've been lying to me all this time? No, it's not what you think. Sophia died 5 years ago. There was an accident. I was at the funeral. Well, she's clearly not dead, Elena screamed. She's sitting there as if nothing happened. Richard ran his hands through his hair in desperation. I don't understand what's happening. This is impossible. She can't be alive. But she is, Elena said, wiping her tears. And I'm the idiot who believed a man like you could fall in love with a woman like me. Elena, please. No, she interrupted him. This is over. I'm not going to be anyone's mistress. I'm not going to be that woman. You're not my mistress. You're the love of my life." "Tell that to your wife!" she screamed, hailing a passing taxi. Richard stood on the sidewalk, watching the taxi carry away the woman he had fallen in love with. He slowly returned to the restaurant where Sophia waited for him, with a glass of wine in her hand. "Well, that was dramatic," she said, "though I must admit she's very pretty. I understand the attraction." "What do you want, Sophia?" Richard asked, sitting opposite her. "Why did you fake your death? Where have you been these 5 years?" "In Paris, mostly. A few months in London, living the life I always wanted to live." "And why are you coming back now?" Sophia smiled, but it was a calculating smile. "Because I saw the pictures in society magazines, my dear husband, rebuilding his life with an empanada vendor. That can't be good for your image, Richard." "My image doesn't matter to me." "It should. And Max should matter to you too. That boy is my son as much as he is yours." "You abandoned Max!" Richard exploded. "You faked your death and left him motherless." "It was a mistake," Sophia admitted. "But now I want to make amends. I want my family back." "There's no family to get back. Max and I have moved on." "With the housemaid?" "Sophia, please. You know that can't last." Richard stood up, furious. "Elena is worth more than you and your whole family combined." "Perhaps," Sophia said, remaining calm. "But I am your wife. Legally, we are still married. And legally, Max is my son." The implicit threat was clear. Richard felt a chill run down his spine. "What exactly do you want?" "I want us to be a family again. You, me, and Max, as it should be. And if I refuse?" Sophia smiled, and this time the smile was completely cold. "Then my parents will have to take legal action to protect their grandson from the influence of inappropriate people." Richard understood perfectly. Sophia and the Davises would fight for Max's custody if he didn't end things with Elena. That night, when he arrived home, he found Max waiting for him in the living room. "Dad, where's Elena?" the boy asked. "She was supposed to help me with my homework." "Elena won't be coming anymore, son." "Why not? Did she do something wrong?" Richard knelt in front of his son, his heart broken. "No, Max, she didn't do anything wrong. It's just that things are complicated." "Is it because Mom came back?" Richard froze. Max knew about Sophia? "How do you know that?" "She's in the kitchen," Max simply said. "She says she's my mom, but I don't remember her. And she says Elena can't come back." Richard rushed to the kitchen and found Sophia pouring herself coffee as if she owned the place. "What did you tell Max?" "The truth. That I'm his mother, and I've come home." "You're not his mother," Richard shouted. "A mother doesn't abandon her child." "A mother does what she has to do to protect her child," Sophia responded calmly. "And I'm going to protect Max from that woman." That night, Richard didn't sleep. He knew he had to choose between Elena and Max, and no matter how much it hurt, he knew which was the only possible choice. His son was the most important thing, even if it meant giving up the love of his life. How does Sophia's unexpected return and the revelation of her faked death shatter Richard's new life with Elena and the children? What is the core of Sophia's manipulation, and how does it force Richard into an impossible choice? Share your insights in the comments. A mother's fight, a father's redemption. 3 months had passed since that terrible night at the restaurant. Elena had gone back to selling empanadas in the streets, but now she had a small, permanent stall downtown, thanks to the money she had saved working for Richard. Leo had grown and was now crawling everywhere, filling his mother's gray days with joy. But the nights were different. The nights were when Elena couldn't help but think of Richard, of Max, of the family she had, for a moment, believed possible. "Sad mommy," Leo babbled, touching the tears on his mother's cheeks. "No, my love," Elena lied, picking him up. "Mommy's fine." But she wasn't fine. Her heart had broken into 1,000 pieces, and she didn't know how to mend it. Worse yet, she had seen the pictures in magazines. Richard, Sophia, and Max at social events, smiling for the cameras like the perfect family. That afternoon, as she prepared empanadas for the next day, someone knocked on her door. Her heart raced for a moment, thinking it might be Richard. But when she opened it, she found an older woman she didn't know. "Elena Flores?" the lady asked. "Yes, that's me. I'm Martha, Mr. Thorne's former assistant. May we talk?" Elena felt her stomach churn. What could Richard want now? "Mr. Thorne doesn't know I'm here," Martha clarified, as if she had read her thoughts. "I came on my own because I'm worried about Max." "What's wrong with Max?" Elena asked. Immediately alarmed. "He's very unwell, ma'am. Since you left, he hasn't been the same. He doesn't eat well. He doesn't sleep. He cries at night asking for you. His grades dropped again. He started fighting at school." Elena felt her heart break. "And his mom? Doesn't she comfort him?" Martha sighed deeply. "Mrs. Davis, she's not exactly maternal. She spends most of her time at social events. Max says she looks at him like he's a stranger." "Why are you telling me this?" Elena asked. "I don't work there anymore." "Because that boy needs you," Martha said urgently. "And because Mr. Richard also needs you, even if he doesn't dare to admit it. Richard is married. He has a family. Do you know why Mrs. Davis faked her death?" Elena shook her head. "Because she was having an affair with her French tennis instructor. She wanted to start a new life with him in Europe, but she didn't want to go through a scandalous divorce that would affect the family fortune." Elena was speechless. "The plan was to disappear forever," Martha continued. "But the Frenchman left her last year, and now she's back because she needs money. The Davises lost a lot in bad investments. Does Richard know this? He suspects it. But Sophia and her parents are threatening him. If he doesn't accept her return, they'll fight for Max's custody. They say you're a bad influence." Anger swelled in Elena's chest. How dare they say that about her? "Ms. Flores," Martha said, taking her hands. "Mr. Richard loves you. I see it in his eyes every day. He's dying inside, but he thinks he's protecting Max. And what can I do? I can't fight against such powerful people." "You can fight for love," Martha said, "and you can fight for Max. That child considers you his real mother." That night, Elena didn't sleep, thinking about Martha's words. The next day, she made a decision that would change everything. Max was sitting alone in the garden, sadly playing with a ball. He had lost weight and had dark circles under his eyes that a 12-year-old shouldn't have. "Max!" a familiar voice called. The boy looked up and couldn't believe what he saw. "Elena!" he shouted, running towards her. "I knew you'd come back. I told Dad you'd come back." Elena hugged him tightly, feeling her own heart mend a little. "I missed you so much, my beautiful boy." "I missed you too. Mommy, the other mommy. She doesn't make me empanadas or help me with homework. And Dad's always sad." "Where's your dad?" "In the office. He's always in the office now." Elena had planned to see Richard first, but she changed her mind when she saw Max's state. "Do you want me to make you empanadas?" she asked. The boy's eyes lit up for the first time in months. They were in the kitchen, with Max helping make the dough and laughing like old times, when Sophia entered. "What is this woman doing here?" she asked in an icy voice. "She's Elena," Max said, protectively standing in front of her. "She's my real mom. I'm your mother, Max. She's not an employee." "No, you're not my mom," Max said, with a bravery that surprised both women. "A mom doesn't leave and abandon her child crying. A mom doesn't come back only when it suits her." Sophia turned red with anger. "Max, go to your room right now." "No," the boy said. "You have no right to give me orders. You don't love me." "Of course I love you. Then why do you never play with me? Why do you never ask me how my day at school was? Why are you always on the phone or out with your friends?" Sophia had no answer for that. "Elena loves me," Max continued, She listens to me. She hugs me when I have nightmares. She knows my favorite food. She's my real mom." At that moment, Richard arrived, drawn by the voices. He froze when he saw Elena in his kitchen. "What's going on here?" he asked. "This woman broke into our house without permission," Sophia said. "And she's filling Max's head with ridiculous ideas." "I invited Elena," Max said. "This is her home too." "Max," Richard began. "No, Dad," the boy interrupted him. "I can't keep quiet anymore. You love Elena, I know it. And she loves you. And I love you both. Why can't we be a family?" "Because I'm your mother and your father's wife," Sophia said. "You're not my mother," Max screamed. "My mother died 5 years ago. You're a liar who faked being dead." The silence that followed was deafening. Max had said aloud what everyone knew, but no one dared to say. "Max is right," Elena finally said, her voice firm. "You are not his mother. A mother does not abandon her child. A mother does not fake her death for money and convenience." "How dare you?" "I dare because I love this child as if he were my own," Elena said, standing beside Max. "I dare because I have been here when he needed me, unlike you, who only show up when it suits you." "Richard, are you going to let this woman insult me?" But Richard was looking at his son, seeing the determination in his eyes, the way he had stood by Elena, as if she really were his mother. "Sophia," Richard finally said, "I think it's time we talked the truth." "What truth?" "The truth about why you faked your death. The truth about Jean-Pierre, your tennis instructor. The truth about why you really came back." Sophia paled. She didn't expect Richard to know about Jean-Pierre. "I don't know what you're talking about." "I know everything, Sophia. I hired a private investigator. I know you faked your death to leave with him. I know he left you. I know your parents lost money, and that's why you came back." Max looked at his father with wide eyes. Elena felt a mixture of pride and apprehension. "That changes nothing," Sophia said, regaining her composure. "Legally, I'm still your wife and Max's mother. Legally, you were declared dead," Richard said. "Our marriage ended when you faked your death. That can be reversed." "Not if I don't want it reversed, and I don't." "Then I'll fight for custody," Sophia screamed. "My parents have influence. Money, power will prove that this woman is a bad influence." "Try it," Richard said, taking Elena's hand. "But I warn you, I'm not going to stay silent this time. The world will know the truth about you." For the first time, Sophia seemed truly scared. She knew that a public scandal would completely ruin her reputation and that of her family. "Dad?" Max said in a small voice. "Does that mean Elena can stay?" Richard looked at Elena, who had tears in her eyes, but also a strength he hadn't seen before. "If she wants to stay," he said. "If she can forgive me for being a coward." "You weren't a coward," Elena said. "You were a father trying to protect his son." "Do you forgive me?" he asked. "Will you give us another chance?" Elena looked at Max, who was watching her with pure hope in his eyes. Then she looked at Richard and saw in him the man she had fallen in love with. "I forgive you," she whispered. "I love you." When they kissed, Max cheered with joy and hugged them both. At that moment, they were finally the family they had been destined to be since that rainy night. Sophia left the house without saying another word, knowing she had definitively lost the battle. Not for money or power, but for something much stronger. True love. What is the most impactful moment in this dramatic confrontation? And how does Max's bravery finally expose Sophia's deception? How does Richard's ultimate choice to defend Elena and fight for their family mark his complete transformation? Share your insights in the comments. A future forged in love. 5 years had passed since that afternoon in the kitchen, when Max bravely declared that Elena was his real mother. 5 years since Richard chose love over fear, and Elena decided to fight for her family. The morning sun streamed through the windows of the new house they had built together. Smaller than the Hamptons mansion, but infinitely warmer. It was a house full of laughter, hugs, homemade empanadas, and origami in every corner. "Mama Elena, look what I did!" Max, now a 17-year-old, tall and self-assured, shouted, running into the kitchen with a letter in his hands. "What is it, my love?" Elena asked, preparing breakfast while Leo, now 5 years old, helped her set the table. "I got accepted to City College of New York. I'm going to study social engineering, just like I always wanted." Elena dropped the spatula and ran to hug him. Max was taller than her now, but he was still her boy, the child she had found crying in the rain. "I'm so proud of you," she shouted, tears of happiness rolling down her cheeks. "Daddy, Daddy!" Leo shouted, running towards Richard, who had just entered. "Max is going to college!" Richard picked up Leo in his arms and hugged Max with his free arm. At 45, he looked younger and happier than ever. "I knew you'd do it, son. I always knew you'd do great things. It's because you believed in me," Max said, looking at both parents. "Because you taught me that love is the only thing that truly matters." Richard's company had grown even more in these 5 years, but now it had a different focus. A significant portion of the profits went to foundations that helped single mothers like Elena had been. She herself directed one of those foundations, combining her life experience with the social work studies she had completed. "Has Grandma Martha arrived yet?" Leo asked. Martha, Richard's former assistant, had become an integral part of the family. After retiring, she had decided to stay close to help care for Leo and be the grandmother the child had never had. "Here I am, my little prince," Martha said, entering through the door with a smile. "And I bring news." "What news?" Elena asked. "I just saw on the news that Sophia Davis got married in Paris to a French businessman. It seems she finally found what she was looking for." A momentary silence filled the kitchen. It had been 3 years since they had heard anything from Sophia, since she had definitively signed the divorce papers and renounced all rights to Max. "I hope she's happy," Elena said, and she meant it. "Elena," Richard said, taking her hand. "You're too good for this world." "I'm just being realistic," she responded. "Sophia wasn't bad. She was just lost. I hope she found her way." Max looked at them with admiration. That was his family, generous, understanding, full of love, even for those who had hurt them. After breakfast, while Leo played in the garden and Martha read in her favorite chair, Elena and Richard sat on the porch swing he had built with his own hands. "Do you remember that night in the rain?" Richard asked, caressing his wife's hair. "How could I forget it?" Elena responded, leaning her head on his shoulder. "It was the night that changed our lives. It was the night destiny united us, though I think destiny had help from a very special boy." They looked towards the garden where Max was teaching Leo how to make an origami crane, with the same patience Elena had shown him years ago. "Look at that," Richard whispered. "Our older son, teaching our younger son. It's perfect. All our children are perfect," Elena said, placing a hand on her slightly bulging belly. Richard followed her gaze, and his eyes lit up. "You're 2 months pregnant," she said with a radiant smile. "I wanted to be sure before telling you." Richard kissed her with a tenderness that still made butterflies flutter in her stomach after 5 years of marriage. "I love you, Elena Thorne," he murmured against her lips. "And I love you, Richard Thorne." From the garden, Max saw them kiss and smiled. He knew his little brother Leo would soon have another little brother, and that their family would continue to grow in love and happiness. That night, during family dinner, Elena and Richard announced the news of the new baby. Leo shouted with excitement, Martha cried with joy, and Max stood up to hug his parents. "Thank you," Max whispered to Elena, "for saving us all." "You saved me too," she responded. "You gave me a family, a purpose, a love I never thought possible. As they cleared the table that night, Richard reflected on the path that had led them there. It had started with a boy crying in the rain, and a woman with a heart so big that she couldn't ignore another's pain. It had continued with lies, misunderstandings, and threats, but it had ended with the simplest and most powerful truth of all. Love always finds its way. "You know what?" Richard said to Elena as they washed dishes together, as they did every night. "What?" "I think we should write our story so our children know how it all began." "And how would that story begin?" Richard smiled, remembering that night that had changed everything. "It would begin with the rain," he said, "and with a humble mother who helped a crying child, not knowing that his millionaire father was watching, and that simple act of kindness would change their lives forever." Elena laughed, that melodic laugh that had captivated Richard from day one. "And it would end with a family," she added, "a family that found in love the strength to overcome any obstacle." Outside, the first drops of a gentle rain began to fall, as if the sky wanted to remind them where it all began. But this time, no one was crying in the rain. This time, there was only a family, whole, happy, and grateful for the path that had led them there. Because in the end, as Max had learned from a very young age, love always finds its way. And when it arrives, it transforms everything it touches, turning tears into smiles, loneliness into companionship, and broken hearts into whole families. And so, under the soft rain of New York City, the Thorne family prepared for their next adventure, the arrival of a new member who would be welcomed with all the love a united family can give. Because this family had learned that true love knows no social barriers, that kindness is always rewarded, and that sometimes the most casual encounters can be the most important of our lives.